11 o'clock. Good morning, everyone, and happy anniversary to the Spiritist Group of New York, SGNY. We are celebrating 20 years of uninterrupted work in the dissemination of Spiritism. My name is Lilian Ruiz. I am a member of the center, and I will be leading us through today the many presentations and conversations planned for this wonderful event. I would like to start by inviting our sister Carol to do an opening prayer for us.
Thank you, Lillian, and thank you everyone for participating today. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, as we gather to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Spiritist Group of New York, we ask for your protection, guidance, and blessings for all those who are participating today. We honor and recognize the years of dedication, hard work, and excellence, which truly has established SGNY as a beacon of light in the world. We invite our spiritual benefactors, mentors, and the good spirits to uplift our consciousness and fill us with love, light, and healing energy. We offer our prayers to the directors, counselors, mediums, healers, and workers of SGNY to continue to be inspired, uplifted, and vigilant during this challenging and powerful time of transformation and paradigm shift. We extend our prayers to those in the physical world, as well as those in the spiritual world who need guidance, healing, and comfort. May they be renewed with hope, courage, and inner peace. Today, we joyfully partake in the blessings of this celebration by sharing this wisdom, love, light, and healing through the assistance of the Master Jesus, the spiritual benefactors, mentors, guides, and the good spirits. May this heartfelt blessing of Spiritism continue to illuminate, expand, and circulate as we do our part. May the truth and treasures of Spiritism continue to enrich our lives, our families, our community, and the Spiritist Center of New York. So be it.
Thank you, Carol. Following this beautiful prayer, let's talk briefly about the origins of SGNY, the Spiritist Group of New York. It all started in a small study group that met once a week for an hour at the Allan Kardec Spiritist Center in Astoria, New York. They were studying the Spirit's book in English. Some members of the group thought it would be great if they could meet more often and could do more in-depth studies in English, expanding to other books of the codification. They realized that they should not do it just informally, and that the best thing to do would be to start a new Spiritist group focused on the dissemination of Spiritism only in English. It was in this manner that on April 12, 2001, the Spiritist Group of New York was created. The founding members, Jussara and João Korngold and Elmo Deslandes, rented a room in the building where SGNY is located up to this day. For the first 5-6 years, SGNY rented the space for only a couple of hours twice a week. Only in 2007, the space became exclusively for SGNY. Since then, many people have come and gone. Jussara, João, and Elmo continue to work with SGNY, directing studies and mediumship meetings and giving talks. SGNY was the first Spiritist group in the US to conduct all meetings in English. From the very beginning, the studies, lectures, and mediumship meetings are all done in the language of this country. as recommended by Divaldo Franco. We are happy to see nowadays that the task of disseminating Spiritism in English has been adopted by many Spiritist centers in the US. So with this brief introduction, I will invite the founders of SGNY to talk briefly about their experience with Spiritism and the SGNY. We start our celebration by introducing Jussara Korngold. Jussara Korngold is currently the General Secretary of the International Spiritist Council and the President of the United States Spiritist Federation. She is the founder and president of the Spiritist Group of New York and the Spiritist Alliance for Books. Mrs. Korngold is fluent in Portuguese, English, Spanish, and French. And she is an international speaker, a published author, and a translator. She works for Brazil Child Health as its main executive. So with you, our very own Jussara Korngold.
Thank you, Lillian. Oh, well, good morning, everyone. It's a very emotional day for all of us, as you can imagine. All of you that are here are part of our history. Of course, an entity, an organization such as the Spiritist Group of New York, it wouldn't exist if it were not for all of you, all your contributions, your presence. And like Lillian said, there were many people that is coming and going, but you all have always a place in our hearts. And the whole thing, the whole point about our celebration today was actually to celebrate amongst ourselves, amongst all of you that throughout the years have been with us and have been impacting us and motivating us and make us go to tears sometimes as well, sharing the sorrows that you all have like we do. So that has been, the heart, the soul of the Spiritist Group of New York. Everything started about 50 years ago or so when I was still a little girl, a 6-year-old, going to Sunday school, and I was not one to comply with everything that they were teaching me. All the nuns and priests were telling me about God. I had so many questions to God and about God. And so this is how, let's say, my religious, spiritual spect started bursting with my preparation for the First Communion. And I wanted to know more, but I was, a 6-year-old, which made it very, very hard for people to take me serious and to actually come up with the answers that I want. Thank God, when I was about, between 10 and 11, my mother took me for the first time to the Spiritist Center and to the adult classes, not to the children and youth, because she was going and I was just, her companion. And I just love it. I love it, what I heard that. I love the whole atmosphere. At that exact day, I remember having so many of my inner questions already answered. And it became something that we would continue doing for the rest of my mom's life, and I hope for my life as well. And we kept on going 2-3 times a week to the Spiritist Center. So by the age of 17, I had already had the opportunity of reading many of the books, the Kardec's books, Andrea Lewis books. I always say reading is not the same as understanding. I'm still trying to understand it all, I'm still striving. But of course, my knowledge, my understanding, my views were opening up each time more. And then it was at the age of 17 that I found my incarnate mentor that is called Nilce Palota. She's a very elderly woman now, and she's still alive, and she's still conducting the Spiritist Center, House of the Way in Sao Paulo, where I was born. And I just stay there, and there was so much study. We were always having opening discussions, which is something, it's the tone of Spiritist Group of New York. Since we had decided to begin our practices here, we always thought that the best way was to actually allow people to participate as much as they could to do this. I remember observing, all the directors and the president of the group that I attended, and I said, God forbid one day I would be the one to be in charge of directing a Spiritist group. Little did I know what was about to happen after, right? But as Lillian presented, it came to a point that after we went to London and seeing the need to spread Spiritism in the language of the country, working so hard there with Janet Duncan, also someone that it was very important in all this path that I'm having right now. And moving to the US, having had the opportunity with Norma Guimarães to work with Spiritism in English in the Allan Kardec Spiritist Center. So we came to the conclusion that we had to do something. We had to have a center that would be not a competition for anyone, but it would be something that would really allow Americans and other nationalities to find a place where they could learn and hear about Spiritism in a language that would be understood to them. So this is what, and then at that point, there was João, there was Elmo, there was other people that was giving us support, and we thought, okay, it's not going to be that hard or so bad in terms of, putting all your life into this effort. But this is how I started. This is how we started as Spiritist Group of New York. And very much like, when we refer to a motherly figure, I would say that you may, you may all be sure that even if I'm not doing the best that I can, I'm trying to do the best. And I'm sharing with you everything that has been the light of my life, the joy of my life, and what has brought me so much happiness, even because it has allowed me to be in touch with you and have this beautiful family like we have right now. So there is much for us to grow. There is much for us to learn. But everything that we do with our hearts and wishing that you may all have your lives in a way that is going to be more, it's going to be easier for you to endure whatever we have or it needs to come in our way. And we are not alone, and this is so wonderful. So with all my love to you, thank you so much for the opportunity of being of service, of serving God, of serving Jesus and the good spirits, and especially our Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, is that today is a day that we celebrate his return to the spiritual realm with all of you. And I would like to invite you all now.
Thank you, Jussara. How's that for an introduction to our day? It's beautiful. Thank you. So now I would like to ask our next speaker, Elmo Deslandes, to give us his introduction. He is a physician's assistant at Lenox Hill Hospital in Manhattan. Elmo has been a spiritist for more than 25 years, and he's one of the founders and directors of SGNY, where he's responsible for the studies of mediumship and the mediumship meetings. In his own words, he says, "I was born in Belo Horizonte in mid-century. My grandmother was a real spiritist. I mean, she practiced pure charity. I came to New York in the 80s. Here I studied, I married, I had 2 children, and I began my studies of Spiritism. Now I only have to start to practice it." So here's with you, Elmo Deslandes.
So good morning, everyone. So as Leland said, I was born in a family that was somewhat spiritist, being that my grandmother was a true spiritist. Not only the one who would buy and read books, but one who would practice it. She lived in a town very close to Pedro Leopoldo, where she could reside. She used to participate in works with him. She used to be deliver babies for free, of course. And very often I used to spend the vacations of middle of the year. At that time in Brazil, the month of July was a month of vacation. And as a child, every vacation would spend there with her. And it was quite often that would wake up in the morning and my grandmother not be home, would arrive later, 10, 11 o'clock, and then find out that she spent the night delivering babies here or there, everything walking. The back of her house, she made a little room where she would have some meetings, studies, giving passes there. So I had an introduction, a very powerful, strong introduction to Spiritism at a young age. But then the juices of rebelliousness came in, and now the teenage years, and I was too busy exploring the lower zones of the physical world to be bothered with Spiritism. And it was only when I got serious in my relationship with Irene, my wife, that it hit me a sense of I had to provide some kind of spirituality to my own children. And I start seeking for this spirituality. My wife Catholic, I start going to Catholic church. It was a complete mismatch for myself and that institution. Nothing as the institution, perhaps it's my fault. And later I discovered there was a spiritist group in Queens. I started to attend there as a pseudo spiritist, meaning the ones that goes over there to listen to lectures and go home. And then going up the stairs one day in that center, there was a sign from FAB that in big letters says, I'm going to let it for the next incarnation again. And in the bottom, it was the study of Spiritism. So then I transferred my objective from being an attendant of lectures to be a student of the doctrine. I made that commitment there. And later on, listening to a speech of a Brazilian speaker who was actually a military man with a very imperative tone of voice, who stated in that lecture that if you are going to the spiritist centers for 6 months and you're not working yet, you are wasting your time. That hit me like a punch in the gut, and I had to start doing something more than just listening and studying. And coincidentally, it was about the same time that the idea of start offering this doctrine this beautiful doctrine from non-Portuguese speaking people would be something useful and would be something to going beyond of being just a attendant of lectures. And thanks to Jussara and João, of course, they played the piano and I limited to carry it so they can play it. And everything rolled naturally, as a natural process or a cascade of the running water, at times turbulent, at times calm, that we went through these 20 years of trying to learn a little bit, and the very little that you learn, we try to pass to others, primarily to the non-Portuguese speaking crowd. I am very happy to be here. It's a no-brainer. It's an opportunity to learn some things that are really valuable. That definitely refines my life, and opportunity to hang out with some really smart and cool people. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Elmo. It's just so good to hear your voice. It's just, I miss the center and when you do the preparation for the passes. And it's just so wonderful to have you here talking to us. I want to now introduce our third speaker, João Korngold, and he's one of the founders and directors of the Spiritist Group of New York and the Spiritist Alliance for Books, SAB. This alliance promotes and disseminates Spiritism in English. He has been one of the directors of the mediumship meeting for the past 20 years. He is also responsible for study groups at SGNY that focus on the basic books of Spiritism and on the André Luiz collection. He gives talks on Spiritism in Portuguese and in English. He's an engineer and professionally he works as a banker. So welcome, João.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here with us today. It was a very special day, a very emotional day for all of us. My journey, a little bit different from Elmo and Jussara, in the sense that I was raised Catholic and very early lost completely the interest and had no interest in any sort of spirituality of religion for all of my youth and early 20s. Because I thought that nothing made sense of all these religious dogmas, and I'm a very rational person, so miracles and all these things for me was really nothing that mean anything. But when I started dating Jussara, she was, of course, already attending a Spiritist center for a long time. So I started listening a little bit about what she said about Spiritism in the beginning, just as a courtesy to my girlfriend. Later, becoming more interested. And eventually, when we moved to London in 1993, of course, the first thing when we learned that we had to go to London, she looked for a Spiritist center there, if there was any, and we found Janet Duncan at the Allan Kardec study group. And when we arrived there, of course, the center was, for those of you who know London, London is a very spread out city. It's the largest city in area, capital in Europe. And the Spiritist center there was all the way up to the north, and we lived kind of southeast in London. So it was a 1-hour train travel to the Spiritist center, and it was in a neighborhood that was, not very nice in a sense. So Jussara told me, we have nothing to do here. Why don't you go to the center with me because I don't want to be by myself. I'm afraid to go to that place by myself. I had nothing better to do. We had just moved there, so I started attending, and it was a study of the Spirits book. And as you start reading and thinking about it, you know, it all started falling into place. It all started to make sense. So I became a little bit more interested. She was already, of course, giving lectures, giving classes, and I told her more than once, I will never in my life give any lecture or direct any study of Spiritism. I have no interest in doing that. And she said, yeah, fine. So life goes on. We moved to New York. At that time, I was already studying and more interested. We started going to the Allan Kardec Spiritist Center in Queens with Norma. And there I started being a little more involved in studying. And then Jussara was directing the class in English, and I was actually, I couldn't make it because I was working late. I was going just to the Portuguese lectures. And then eventually she told me that the group had decided to move to open a center. From there, we opened the center. First, we met a couple of times a week in a place that one of the English speaker people of the group, Pat Jennings, offered to us, and then we rented our space. And when we rented our space was after we spent 2 years in Miami, and in Miami I really got more involved in started being a counselor or at the mediumship meeting, always being pushed by Jussara to do things, because if it was by myself, I wouldn't, but she was always pushing me. And when we opened our own center, you know, we had to do things. So that's where we started doing the studies. I started directing the studies. We had our first mediumship meeting on September 10, 2001, one day before September 11, the famous September 11. We had some communications from victims of September 11 in the few months after in our mediumship meetings. Elmo started in the mediumship meeting just, you know, giving support. And eventually, like Jussara is always pushing people to do things and people to take roles, senior roles in the center. She's always the one that forces us to get involved. Like Elmo said, if you are in the Spiritist Center for more than 6 months, you are not doing anything. You are wasting your time. So she takes it very seriously and push people to do things. So here we are 20 years later, still doing things. I'm happy today to direct the classes, to be part of this group, to have such interesting discussions on Spiritism. And I'm sure we are all here very happy to have all of you with us. We have many people today, including people from other centers in the region. We thank you, Peter, Elder, Jenny, the names I see here, Adilson, for being here with us, for being part of this celebration. And I'm going to send it back to Lillian and enjoy this afternoon with us. Thank you all.